Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Living on Music. I'm Steve Hauk, and this has been an incredible week, as many of the weeks doing Living on Music have been, but this has been incredible. It's two artists of several other artists, but two of them is music that I have loved for decades, since I was in my teens and then in my early 20s. The band's Al Stewart was just on Living on Music, and fell for him, when I was about 15 or 16 with You're the Cat and things, and that music went on in my life. And so did the music of the Smithereens. And Jim Babjak is my guest tonight. And Jim is the founding member, songwriter, singer at times, and lead guitarist of all of the Smithereens. Since really 1980 is when the band got all together, but they knew each other. Jim Babjak, Dennis Diken, and Mike Mesaros, they knew each other way back in high school in Carteret, New Jersey. And then they began to play a lot together and were looking for a lead singer, and put an ad into one of the local kind of reach outs for musicians. And so did Pat DiNizio. He was looking for a band, drummer really, and actually they all got together and the Smithereens began, and didn't have their first record though for 5 years. So they were really going along and along and along and along. We're like, why can't we record yet? And boom, they exploded out of there. We talk about the evolution of the Smithereens, kind of how they began, some of the interesting times that Jim had as a founder, as a guitarist, going through the different records, and sometimes it felt good, it seemed, and other times it felt challenging and in some ways tough. And it was an amazing ride, though, that they're still doing. In fact, they're playing the Birchmere the day after Al Stewart, so I'll be going to both shows in that week, next week, when as we're recording. But it is an incredible opportunity to talk to a guy who helped create this electrifying original rock and roll now for 42 plus years, 43, and also has a side project with some buddies that play, some amazing guys, and also has his own coffee company, small coffee distributor, and that is a fun thing to talk about. But anyway, this is a amazing ride, again, for a guy who founded a band that I loved when I turned 25. That's when 26, when this band released their first record, and I was loving them for years and still do. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Living on Music welcome to Jim Babjak. Jim Babjak, I cannot tell you what a thrill this is, even for this old man too, to see you here. Welcome to Living on Music, Jim.
Oh, thanks for having me. And are we that old?
Really? No, and you look great. And, obviously we're going to talk about what's going on past, present, and future, because that's what happens on Living on Music. But it is such a thrill to be here with you after literally many years of still loving the music that you and the Smithereens did, and all the things that you brought to that band with the guitar. And I've been playing Smithereening for the last 2 weeks when I knew we were going to talk, and just delving back in, and boy, we will have some fun talking about stuff. But welcome to Living on Music, Jim. We're going to go back and forward and things, but I wanted to know from your perspective, and one day I won't have to ask people this, or I won't ask them, but I love, everybody has a perspective on what happened over the last 3 years. And as a lifelong musician in one of the bigger rock bands ever, at least for us real rock and roll fans, it must have been a pretty incredible ride. I know you guys did some stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that along with Babjax Coffee. But talk to me a little bit about how it did for Jim Babjak.
The pandemic?
Yeah, the pandemic.
Well, I use that time to write.
Great.
I'm working on new songs for a future album
Yes.
with the guys and with Marshall and Robin Wilson, Marshall
Oh,
Crenshaw,
great.
and Dennis Diken and Mike Mesaros. So what are you going to do?
Right. Right.
You got to keep
Exactly.
going.
And that's
Keep
what a lot of the musicians I've talked to have done. You also started the bar, or you did a debut CD from that side project with Danny and Kurt, right?
Oh yeah, that album. We recorded that a while ago and
Right.
then decided to release it. I'm a procrastinator. you know, I've got I've got another 2 albums worth of solo material that I haven't
Oh.
released yet. That I don't know. I'm slow at it.
But that's great. That's what it's luckily, although the live portion of music went south for a long time, everybody was able to kind of do what they needed to do. And all 200 musicians I've interviewed since I started this in the pandemic so they could engage and have something to do. They had the same thoughts, and that's what they did. You also, couple of things, you played a really fun, it was a front yard gig. You did some Badfinger and some Smithereens with Robin and Marshall and Graham, maybe. That had to be, I saw the masks on, and we'll show a little bit of it. What was that? Was that just a way to get out playing again together?
Yeah, that was a scary time. I remember wearing the mask. um, Robin Wilson has also lives in Long Island, and
Right.
he's from Arizona. He lives in Arizona too,
Right.
and he was stuck there during the pandemic, and Graham maybe just lives, I don't know, like 10 minutes from there, and I've known Graham for a long time, so we invited him. I think Robin did that as a fundraiser for his brother, for the war veterans.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
trying to remember what that was, because
Yeah.
I think we did it twice, and that was just in this front yard. It was
Yeah,
pretty funny.
it
And then
was.
people were walking by and like, "What's going on here?"
Well, and they must have recognized you guys in some way, and if they didn't, then they were told. It's what a thrill to have guys like you playing in a front yard.
Yeah, it was odd, and it was really cool.
I love it. You did some Badfinger and some Smithereens blended and stuff like that. Well, that again was musicians finding ways to continue. 2021, you were the inaugural act at the grand opening of a place in Carteret, Jersey. And that was the Performing Arts and Events Center. That had to be a neat thing to come back home.
That was really special. I mean, growing up there was nothing like that. There was no theater that could hold, I don't know what, 3,000 people.
Right.
I mean, that would have been cool if it was there when I was a kid. Then maybe the Who might have played there on their first tour or something.
Right.
But yeah, it was really special, and it was almost like a high school reunion for us. A lot of kids that we went to school with were at that show, so it was pretty incredible.
Oh, I bet. When I heard about that, I was like, I bet he loved going back there. They all did. Before we get into a run with that band you've been in, that I can't remember, the Smithereens. Let's talk for a second about Babjax Coffee. And is that something that's continuing forward? Was that something that you wanted to do for a while, or how did that come to be?
I've had a friend who's a roaster. I've known him for about 20 years, and I was joking around with him one day, and I said, "Can you blend bourbon with coffee?" And we tried that. We tried a couple of other things, and then he hit on something that I now called Highland Grog. And then I have a dark roast and then a morning blend, a light roast. So what I wanted to do about 7 years ago is open up a cafe, a coffee shop that also sells vinyl records, and have this cool place to go, and maybe a little stage and some softer kind of entertainment, like acoustic kind of thing. But I decided against that for various reasons, and well, because I'm going to be I'm busy touring and everything.
Sure.
And I used to have a record store back in the early '80s, from 1980 till about 1988.
Wow.
That sold vinyl records, and I added VHS tapes around 1984. So, I loved having that store back then. And
Oh,
people still talk about it on Facebook. And then because of Facebook, people are now saying, "Hey, I remember when I was at your store and you recommended this album and this and that." And I don't know if it would be the same. It probably wouldn't be,
right,
So anyway, I decided against that.
right,
It would be fun to do, but I decided to just sell the coffee online because it really is good.
right.
The shipping is a pain in the ass because it's really expensive. But
Oh,
and I should tell people that whether you order one bag or six, it's the same price for shipping. So, but
right,
well, I'll get to that someday because this is
right.
just it's I wouldn't say a hobby. I love coffee and it's really good. So I might as well put it out there.
Yeah,
And it's a small batch thing, so I only make like 30 bags at a time,
right.
uh, or roast it so it's fresh all the time.
Sure.
And I only have 3 blends right now, and I'm gonna get a whole bean Italian roast for espresso, and then a decaf. So that's all in the works. And
Wow.
it took 7 years for me to get the trademarks and incorporated LLC, and just all the crap that went with it. And the funny thing is, the minute I went to the bank and opened up an account, for some reason somebody already took the name, so I couldn't use it for a website. So that took a lot of work to straighten out. And
Oh, wow.
when you're it's different now running a business than it was when I had the record shop in 1980. I
Right.
mean, there are sharks out there, and they'll just take your stuff.
Oh,
They'll take your ideas and whatnot. But
I bet.
so anyway, here we are.
Well, that's neat. Again, something that happened during a tough time for everybody. All of us, in one way or the other, got affected by it,
Yeah.
either directly or everybody we knew. But that's neat that came out for you, Jim. I love that. As we want to take a little bit of a ride down your musical path, how you got to be where you ended up, we will go in a second. In 2022, though, because we were talking about that with your coffee and the Performing Arts Center and things like that, you released the Lost album. And those were what? There were 12 previously unreleased songs, right? That came in the fall of 93 when you were writing away, featuring all you guys. Before I play a little bit of a clip to start this ride off from a song that a lot of people, unless they bought that record, probably haven't heard and are excited to hear some of your music. How did that begin? What was the reason for the Lost album?
Well, during the pandemic, I was looking through all my old cassette tapes, demos and stuff, because I've got there's at least 2 songs that I wrote back in the 80s that I'm gonna finish.
Oh,
for a future album. So I found this tape, and then I called Dennis, our drummer, up, and he had a DAT version of it. I don't know if you remember what a DAT tape was. A little,
yeah, I do.
but the quality was really good.
Oh, good.
And unfortunately, the 2-inch tape, the original master, was lost in a fire along with a bunch of other master tapes.
Right.
But this DAT, we had this remastered, and it sounds great. And we just figured, people would love to hear these songs that we're kind of forgotten about, because
Yes.
and to hear Pat's voice, still youthful, and our playing was, we were on top of our game, and it was just we had to put it out. We can't just leave it sitting there.
Right.
Well, the story behind it is in 93, early 93, we were let go from Capitol Records because the new CEO came in and wanted younger bands, because we were already 30 years old. So, they signed Blind Melon. Well, they got rid of half their roster.
Yeah.
And our last album there, Blow Up, sold like 390,000 copies, and that was considered to be a flop, which I found really strange.
Yeah.
I'd love to sell that many records now.
Right.
Yeah, compared to the 11 album, Smithereens 11, yeah, it sold, less than that, but
Yeah.
still, there's no loyalty there,
Mhm.
and working. So anyway, it is what it is. And being the survivors that we are,
Right.
we decided to just go into the studio and start recording everything that we have. We ended up recording 24 songs, I think. And so it's our master. We went to the recording studio, paid for it ourselves. And then we got signed to RCA
Yep.
sometime in later in the year.
Yep.
And we decided to re-record half of those 24 songs, and that became Date with the Smithereens.
Right.
And so
Right.
we also have a tape of those demos from Date with the Smithereens, so we could put out like a alternate universe Date with the Smithereens, like Courting the Smithereens or something.
Sure.
But so anyway, these other 12 songs we kind of forgot about, because then we kept moving on and went on to play more, record more albums and whatnot, and just discovered this now, like holy moly, we people would love to hear this. So that's why we put it together. Dennis had some photos from the session that we used for it, and it just worked out.
Oh, I love that. Well, we're going to kick. Yes, no, please.
And we're going to put it out on vinyl sometime this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got. I just love that when the vinyl is rebooted out there. That makes me feel like I'm loving music again, because boy, do I miss vinyl.
I play vinyl every day.
Oh, I love that.
And this isn't even my record room, but if below there, let's see, there's a whole bunch of albums down there.
Oh, that's great.
And then I have a turntable in the corner here. So this room is dedicated just for reading and listening to vinyl.
Oh, I love that. Well, let's go back before we go down Jim's musical ride, as he, prior to the Smithereens and then through their run for a while. Let's go to the Lost album that these guys put out. And here's a song that if you're a Smithereens fan, you're going to be very excited for the whole record. But here's a little Out of the World.
Sympathies in the morning, I say a prayer for them in the night. I know just how you strike without warning, and how I gave up without a fight. You say I never understand the new things you found. You're a complicated kind of a girl. You say the pain of living's really getting you down, but I can't feel sorry for a girl who's out of this world. Let's get out of this world. Out of this world. All right.
Well, there, you know what, Jim, I don't know, as a Smithereens fan for so many years, that just enriched me when I heard it. And I listened to basically the whole record when that I saw it, and love every minute of it. So very smart to do for your base, and also the people that are going to still love you guys forever, because that's what happens to great music. It may have come out years ago, but you guys you'll still stand up the test of time. And people, we're going to show you some of what Jim and this band did live, which is one of my favorite things to do with this band. What were, Jim, in your early life, your musical influences? I mean, was it your parents? Was it your friends? Was it finding the radio in your life? Tell me a little bit about how it came to be, and who was it early on before you met up with the boys in high school, and then things, started even taking off then?
Well, my parents are Hungarian, and they emigrated here with me to America in 1958.
Oh, so you were born in?
I was born in Austria.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I've been there. I have been to Salisbury.
Yeah, beautiful city.
Sure is.
But I was in a immigration camp.
Wow.
But I was a year old. I don't remember. what happened after World War II was the Soviets came in, the Russian Soviets, and they took over all those countries: Czechoslovakia, Poland, Hungary. And my grandfather had a vineyard and a tavern, which they took away from him. So in 1956, there was a revolution, a minor revolution, where they were throwing rocks at the Russian tanks, and they obviously weren't going anywhere with that. And my mom and dad weren't married yet, but they were teenagers, and they decided to walk into Austria and escape. There was a 3-day window, I think it was, where the guards were letting people through, and they weren't shooting them like they were supposed to.
Wow.
So anyway, they ended up there, and then 9 months later, my parents got married, and 9 months later, I was born, like to the day. And then we waited. They waited another year. We ended up in Carteret, New Jersey, where I had some relatives. My mom's uncle lived here, had a flower shop in Carteret. So we ended up in Carteret, New Jersey. That's how we got here.
Oh, that's amazing. And
crazy.
Did you ever have any other brothers and sisters, or were you an only child?
Yeah, I have a younger brother that was born here.
So when you came over there, your musical world, was it through your parents, your friends, right, the radio, what in Carteret as you grew into, a teenager?
Well, a little bit of both. When I was young, when I was 7, my parents were young. When I was 7, my dad was only 27. Right. He was only, and they would constantly have people over, have parties, and he played the accordion, so they would play like Hungarian folk songs and polkas and stuff.
Right.
So my dad got me accordion lessons, and as it turned out, Mike Mesaros, our bass player, had the same accordion teacher at the same time.
Oh God.
And he went to our church. I went to a Catholic church, and Mike and I both had our communion together in 1964.
Oh, so you began very early with Mike. I know with Dennis closely, but wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then I started playing the violin in 1966.
Look at you, accordion and violin, and guitar's not even in it yet, though, right?
Not yet, but I did see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan when I was 7 years old, and right. I got a transistor radio, one of those little tiny ones that you put by your ear.
Right.
And I love the Beatles, always did. And by 1968, the kids in school really weren't into the Beatles. Like, they were kind of passé at that time, 68, right. 69, yep. with 8th graders, 7th graders, but I was really into them. Right. So I asked my dad if he can buy me a guitar, and so I got this cheap little guitar with a plastic amp that came with it.
Oh, I love that. That's that. So, and were you listening to WABC in New York, or what were you?
Yeah. AM radio was big.
Yeah, Harry Harrison and all of those guys. I dated Harry Harrison's daughter in college. But that is really neat. And so the guitar came into your hand largely with giving the Beatles credit. Boy, is that a wonderful common thing with seasoned musicians. Is the Beatles?
It is. It's almost funny to say sometimes, because it's like, yeah, the Beatles. But I mean, without them, I don't know. I mean, because later on, though, it was. So what happened was, first day of high school,
right?
The first class in the morning, earth science, there's a kid sitting behind me, Dennis Diken, right? He's been playing drums since he was like 7.
The longtime drummer for the Smithereens, for everybody who is out there.
Yeah, so he was looking to start a band in high school, and he was there with the intent, if I could meet someone that could play I Can't Explain by The Who, then I know I got the right guy. So
blint. Oh, that is great.
So here's the thing. This is just fate. I open up my loose leaf notebook, and I've got a picture of The Who that I cut out from Hit Parader magazine taped onto my folder. And he sees this. And after class, he approaches me in the hallway, and we start talking. And there we go. The next day, we were already playing together.
Where were you playing? In a garage or a basement?
Basement.
There you go. That was the prime spot, I bet, for you guys at that age, and for a lot of years for people. And that was with Mike and you and Dennis, and it's just the three of you, or just the two of you?
No, just the two of us. And we actually played. We played in bands, and we actually played as a duo, just without vocals or anything. It's just guitar and drums at like these youth meetings or whatever.
What songs did you play with the two of you?
We played songs from the Who's, Tommy. We did songs by the Kinks. Yeah. So
love that.
Way before the White Stripes concept, but it was just guitar and drums.
Exactly.
So Mike, he saw how much fun we were having, and really loved the music too. And we were already graduating in 1975. He decided to pick up the bass that summer. So I taught him how to play Can't Explain, of course, No Matter What by Badfinger,
and
My Baby Left Me by Elvis.
Yes.
And We Got to Get Out of This Place by the Animals. So I taught him those. He bought a bass, and he went off to college for a semester. And by the time he came back, he was playing like a pro. I was like, he must have sold his soul to the devil or something. But
wow,
he was playing like he loved the Ramones too, and James Jamerson from the Motown sessions, and Paul McCartney, John Entwistle. So all those influences rolled up into one is Mike, melodic bass player, and he was just fantastic. So then around that time, we started taking it more seriously, because my dad opened up a tavern. That was his dream, to come to America and open up a tavern like my grandfather had.
Right.
So he managed to do that. And my destiny was going to be running the family business, but I still went to college anyway. And, but Dennis and I went to see Wings Over America in 1976. And then after the concert in Madison Square Garden, we were like, you know what, there's this new club in New York we should go visit, called CBGB's. So we go in there, and it was like the coolest thing. We saw a band called Television. And
who just passed.
I saw them. Yeah, I know. Tom Verlaine just passed.
Tom Verlaine just.
And I bought their single, Little Johnny Jewel. It was like $5 back then. And so all these bands we saw there, the Shirts, Fanny Gold.
Oh my gosh.
Deborah Harry with Blondie, the Ramones, the Dictators, Talking Heads.
Beautiful.
I was in the audience. There was only 3 people in the audience. And then these bands were getting signed. And then we started to take it more seriously. Like, it seemed like more of a reality. Like, hey, we got this band. We're pretty good.
Right.
So we went through some lead singers, and then finally we found Pat in 1979 in an ad
from Scotch Plains, which wasn't too far away, right?
Yeah. So the 3 of us we already had a sound. We've been playing for a long time before we even met Pat. So
I bet he put an ad in, right? A classified ad in the Aquarian Weekly.
Yeah, he did too. At the same time we did.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
And he got an instant band, and we got a lead singer that could also write some songs.
Oh, that's incredible how that began. And I guess Pat, and a lot of the stuff that I've read, his biggest influence was Buddy Holly. Mm-hmm. That's what you felt when you met him and when you started playing? Absolutely. And things?
Yeah, because disco was big in the 70s, and I kind of rejected that. I mean, it's all good. I don't hate disco. And I mean, Saturday Night Fever was a great movie, you know? But at that time is when in the 70s, well, in the early 70s too, we started going to these Richard Mader concerts at the Garden, where they had Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, Bo Diddley, all these guys that were still alive back then, would play these things at the Garden, the Rock and Roll Revival, and you had American Graffiti come out. I bought that soundtrack album, and then I started going backwards to see what the roots were of rock and roll. So, you know, that's how I learned how to play. I started playing Chuck Berry riffs because, you know, that's what I gravitated to.
Right.
And then, you know, the Rolling Stones Get Your Ya-Ya's album, you know, they were doing "Oh Carol" by the Chuck Berry song, and that's the first solo I learned how to play because I'm kind of self-taught with that stuff.
Oh man.
And it started there, you know. And then
that is fascinating. I love the way that began and it seemed like the four of you, Jim, Dennis, Mike, and Pat, I mean, who were together for decades from that moment. Did you bond? Well, you'd already bonded with the three, then it's the four, but a band is a band, and starting it, things seem to kick in pretty quickly in a coherent fashion for you guys.
Oh, very quickly. We started playing out right away as soon as we can find a bar that would hire us.
Right.
So, you know, we just, we started doing some Beatles covers. Also, there was only maybe a handful of originals that Pat came up with, and then went from there. And
the band name was obviously from Yosemite Sam. Who came up with that?
Yeah, that was Dennis's name. He had a little pocket notebook thing that had a list of like 100 names, and that one really stuck. That one stuck out.
Varmint, I'm gonna blow you to smithereens. I remember it vividly too, and I think I knew that when I first found out about you guys. I'm thinking, was it from Yosemite Sam? But you guys, you were paying your dues in clubs at that point. Were you playing a lot before in '85? You booked yourselves into the record plant and recorded a number of songs just to begin to record. Were you you just began to kind of, because you know, people are going to see, and people who know your band know the live power that you have, and you still have to this day, which I can't wait for in a couple of weeks to see you. But you were continuing to play before you recorded your first record, and those songs. Live music was a powerhouse for you early on.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we put out 2 independent records before that first album, and then that first album, half of it we recorded already, right, thinking that we're going to put out a full-length independent record, but then we got signed to a small label in California called Enigma, and then they paid for us to finish the album and add another 6 songs or whatever, and hire Don Dixon.
Yes, REM produced it. Yeah, the first 2 REM records. That was amazing when I saw that. I don't know if I knew that. It took a while. You released, and I love Pat said it was a greatest hits album from a band nobody's heard of, because you'd had the songs in your heart, and they were something else. I mean, you guys seemed to jump out at things pretty soon after the record came out. You're featured in movies already with Class of Nukem High and things. How was that? How did that come to be, getting into a film?
That was before we were signed. That was like in 1983 or something like that. They used a song from our independent record, Beauty and Sadness, a song called Much Too Much.
Much Too Much, right.
I don't remember how that happened, but it was filmed around Boston somewhere. God, I don't remember that, but I remember not having much money then. And on the set of the movie, they had, I'd never seen a catered thing like that for people. So there was a bunch of tuna fish sandwiches wrapped in plastic. I stuffed a whole bunch of them in my pocket to take home.
Oh my God. I love that. That is amazing. What I love doing is showing you guys playing live from the beginning. And here you are in 1987. This is on the Saturday Live show, and it wasn't Saturday Night Live. Was that a UK show?
Yeah. I mean, we did play Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah, you did.
But that was in the UK, called Saturday Live. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in Newcastle.
Oh,
and that's the first time I had Newcastle Brown Ale, which at the time you couldn't get here.
Oh my God. So, I love Newcastle Brown Ale as well.
You know what I remember about that show? We were in Paris. We were playing in France. We were on a European tour. And the crew took some of our bags and they took the ferry to England. My passport was on that boat. So I'm at the airport in Paris, and I had to talk my way onto the flight. They let me go without a passport from Paris to London. And it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing that they let me go. And I said, well, I'm in this rock band. We're supposed to do a TV show tonight.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if that would fly today. Like they probably wouldn't.
Oh no.
I'd be screwed. But then I was with my tour manager and I was joking. I played a trick on him. I said, well, what am I going to do with this big bag of pot I got here? But I didn't have any pot. I was just, ribbing him about it. I love the reaction on his face.
Oh, that is hilarious. In fact, the Saturday Night Live this last week was Woody Harrelson, and he actually pointed out his tour manager, his own manager, and said that he brought the pot on the plane to New York. So, boy, there's a comparison between you and Woody Harrelson there. I
love Woody.
I know. We're gonna play a bit. That's wonderful to get that story. So now, when you look at Jim on stage, you'll realize that he's lucky he's playing at this gig, and that. The first record, obviously, a number of amazing songs that you'll hear Blood and Roses live too. But this is a wonderful song, one of my favorites. There's so many that you guys did. But this is from the Saturday Live show. It's on March 21st, 87. And a little bit of Behind the Wall of Sleep.
Good things coming towards you, but right now, the live guitar sound of the Smithereens!
Back in 1965, she had legs never empty. I was halfway without her life. She was tall and cool and pretty, and she dressed as black as gold. If she'd asked me to act murder, I would gladly lose my soul. Now I lie in bed and pick up her. Sometimes I even weep. Then I dream of her behind the wall of sleep. Well, she held a bass guitar and she was playing in a band. And she stood just like Bill Wyman. Now I am her biggest fan. Now I know I'm one of many who would like to be your friend. And I've got to find a way to let you know I'm not like them. Now I lie in bed and think of her. Sometimes I even weep. Then I dream of her behind the wall of sleep.
I don't know, man. I get the chills just hearing your music. I mean that. No smoke being blowed here. It is so wonderful to hear that song and live and fun. It seemed things kicked off pretty damn fast for the Smithereens. You had not only the attention on the record, you had the first album was in a soundtrack for Dangerously Close. You had the music video on MTV Rocking, which was a big deal back then. Blood and Roses was on Miami Vice. Did it feel like things had taken off pretty well right from the start after the beginning of, especially for you?
For me personally, it was almost anticlimactic because it was like 6 years that it took us to become an overnight success,
right?
Which people thought it was. People thought we just got together. You know, and no, it took a lot of hard work, and playing in bars for like $50 a night, and my bar tab would be more than that because they weren't giving us free drinks back then.
Right.
It was a great feeling, but looking back now, it's like almost like it was a different person. I mean, that was a couple of lifetimes ago. My oldest son now is 34, and my youngest is 27.
Oh,
and the stuff you're playing, wow, it was so long ago. You know?
wow.
It almost seems like a different person to me.
Right.
So I'm enjoying it. You know, I love listening to that stuff too. Like occasionally I'll put it on the vinyl, especially, and
Sure.
go, wow, this is pretty good. No, but when you're in it, you're just in it. I don't know. Like people ask me what was it like on Saturday Night Live, you know, in the U.S. when we were on, and it was just another day on the tour. Well, it was actually 2 days because there was a rehearsal on Thursday, but we had shows before that and after that. And I think we got on the tour bus after that, and we were in some other. I think we went to Canada actually. Wow. So we didn't really have time to savor it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You're just kind of in it and you're doing it. The Jay Leno show, we did that twice. We actually waited. We were supposed to be on the Carson show, but they told us that Leno was going to take over in a month. So wait a month before you go on, because you'll get a younger audience.
Right.
So we did that. And what was the other one? Conan. We did a lot of late shows. David Brenner show. That was good. Great guy too.
Yeah, we have a bunch of clips from some of those shows coming up, and there's in fact the next one is from one of those shows.
Really?
You'll remember
now,
it.
We never did do Letterman's show.
Oh, that's it.
And we were offered that 3 times, and the label was kind of mad at us for not wanting to do it. But they always insisted on. Well, first they insisted on the band, the Paul Schaefer and his band playing and just Pat singing.
Oh,
and we're like, wow, that's really disrespectful. We're a band, you know. So totally. That's how that all went down, and I was like, man, really? And then
wow.
Finally they had REM on. I guess they had and then they let them play.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I was like, I just watched the clip of REM not long ago, and I'm like, it's the whole band. That is very odd.
Yeah, but they didn't let us do that, so we said we politely declined.
Yeah, but it sounds like you did have an amazing run at those shows. 88 was Green Thoughts, which came out and did quite well. You were, in the US. 11 came out in 89, which, again, seemed to turn things even higher for you guys. I love it came out with Ocean's 11 and a little push from Spinal Tap. This one goes to 11 on it, and that was according to you. I love that. But that record, it had Girl Like You. It had other things. Did it feel like that had continued to surge you guys along a little bit with that record?
Absolutely. It was a little slicker production, more radio friendly.
Right. You went from Don Dixon to Ed Stasium?
Yeah. Ed produced Living Color.
And Ramones, right. Wow.
And Ramones, he's a Jersey guy too, originally.
Right.
So, we got along really well, and it's a good album. It's a good, solid record. I think,
it totally is. It peaked at number 2 on Billboard's mainstream, and 3. I mean, that was a big surge, and without any fail, as Jim was just talking about late night television appearances, this one kicks total ass. I love this, and you got a fun little introduction from the host. It's Arsenio Hall. And 1990, this is a fabulous version to me of one of the best songs you guys have ever done that I still play all the time on my playlists. Here's a Little Girl Like You.
My next guests are on the cutting edge of American rock and roll. Their pure, hard-driving sound has won them critical acclaim and put them at the top of the charts. Here to perform their hit, A Girl Like You. From their album, The Smithereens 11, give it up for The Smithereens.
do. I'll say everything you want to hear. I'll see everything through. I'll do everything I have to do just to win the love of a girl like you. Girl like you. People talking, people stare, tell her I don't really care. This is the place I should be. And if they think it's really strange for a girl like you to be in love with someone like me, I wanna tell them all to go to hell, that we do them very well without me see. It's just the way it is, and they will see. I am yours and you are mine, the way it should be. I'll see everything you want to hear. I'll see everything through. I'll do everything I have to do just to win the love of a girl like you. A girl like you. Oh yeah. Now if I see you a little while, there's the holding back of time and every message.
I don't know. That takes me. It's wild how music that you've done, and not every artist that's put out music in their lives is able to do this to people, and music fans and music souls. Is whenever I play it, I think back when I was in my 20s, and I love it. But it's still good. Jim, don't you I mean, you have to feel good that music is staying the test of time.
We were hoping that what we do is timeless in a way.
It is.
I mean, younger people, I'm seeing more and more at our shows. And like my 27-year-old, he still buys vinyl, and he still likes rock records, bands like Tame Impala, the Temples. He turns me on to some of the newer bands, Rival Sons.
Yes,
they're really good. You know,
Future Birds. Has he ever had you play any of them?
I don't know that one.
They're
yet,
neat. How old's your son?
My youngest is 27.
Yeah, my son's 27 as well. And
I'm always eager to hear new rock music.
Yeah, he turned me on to the Future Birds, and I was going to try to sing it with one of my own bands. But what I did tell him, I said that I'm interviewing you, and I said, the Smithereens band, and he's like, I don't know, I don't think so. And I'm like, well, at 27, you should know who the Smithereens are, because he's a rock fan. But I love the fact that this music, for us of the age that when it came out, but also for other people, it really is timeless. You should be proud of that, man. 91 was Blow Up. Too Much Passion's on there. You got wonderful feedback on it. All Music's Jason Damas called it the most straightforward mainstream ready release yet. Did Blow Up feel like you were continuing yourselves?
Personally, I didn't.
Interesting. Cool.
I was hip to Nirvana already.
Yes.
And I wanted to stay more in the direction, more rocking direction that we were in. And I have a song on there called Now and Then,
right,
which was the last radio single on that record.
Right.
But Pat was gravitating more towards strings and Motown and this and that. And I don't think it was the right time, because grunge was coming up, and
yes.
and we had been an influence on Kurt Cobain, and I felt like we were heading in the wrong direction, actually.
Interesting.
But I mean, it's a great album. I love the album, but as far as placing it in that time, it was probably the wrong time.
Right.
And that's the way I look at it now. But it was a great record, and it holds up. It
Yeah.
definitely holds up.
It does, and you have every conceivable right as a founder of the band to feel any way you wish, and that's very interesting. We're going to go to another late night, just because I couldn't get enough. I could have played 50 of your songs in this show, Jim, but I tried to whittle it down, and I wanted to make it only these amazing live late night shows. This is in 1990, right around that time. Dennis Miller, who had that short time TV show, but this is another wonderful version of a song from the Smithereens, from Blow Up, a little Top of the Pops.
Oh, okay.
Walk on. Hey, hey. Big plans, big time, everything. Downtown pawn shop, bought us a ring. Heading for the top, top of the pop, top, top, top of the pop. Hey, hey, top, top, top of the pop. Two-time, head of the king. With black or black, we were ready to swing. Too far gone to stop. Top of the pop, top, top, top of the pop. Hey, hey, top, top, top of the pop. Top of the pop, top, top, top of the pop. Hey, hey, top, top, top of the pop. You told me, baby, you had time to kill, but then you tossed me out like an overdue. You left in a hurry with a guy from the band on a one-way ride to the promised land. Top of the pop, top, top, top of the pop. Yeah, top, top, top of the pop. Walk on. Tell me, baby, you were gone for good, but then you are right back in the old neighborhood. You stood in the lobby with a tip in the hand for a one-way ride to the promised land. Top of the pie, top, top, top of the pie.
That's another one that really gets into the Smithereen soul of Steve Hauk, and I love hearing that song too. Things Again, despite your appropriate and legitimate thoughts of where that album might go, you were continuing to escalate. You're playing with people. Were you going on tours with people like Tom Petty, Squeeze, Pretenders? How was that touring? Although you were playing solo, how did that begin? Where you're playing with all these other bands going through?
Well, we had a great booking agent at the time. It was
Really?
called Premier Talent, and
Yeah.
Frank Barcelona was the head of it.
Oh,
And he was the guy that brought the Who over
oh,
and the Cream, as he called it,
the cream.
on their first into America. And he was involved with the Beatles too, on their first tour with Carnegie Hall.
Right.
But so they had Springsteen, they had Tom Petty, they had the Ramones, they had everybody. And so they would always put us on the road. And when we weren't playing on our own, they would put us with the Pretenders or Lou Reed. Well, Lou Reed was a fan of ours. He was a good friend of ours, actually.
That's great.
And by 1994, when we recorded Date with the Smithereens, Pat ran into him on the street in New York, and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And he said, "Well, we're recording an album down at the Magic Shop." And he says, "Oh, well, I like to play guitar. You mind if I drop by?"
Nice.
So he invited himself, which is really cool. Pat told me, "Well, guess what? Lou Reed just said he wants to come over." So, and he actually played a solo on one of my songs, "Point of No Return."
Oh,
So,
on Date with the Smithereens.
Yeah, and I didn't come up with a solo yet for my own song, so Lou played on that. So that was really cool.
Oh, I love that. What a wonderful surprise, even from I was walking down the street to go see the Jayhawks, Gary Lewis's band, the Jayhawks, and
Yeah.
God, back in the I don't even know 90s, and parked the car and walking down the street, and I looked ahead of me, and there's a guy smoking a cigarette in front of a tavern, and it was Lou Reed, and I'm like,
Yeah,
hi Lou.
chain smoker.
And the fact that he, was able to come and play in your studio or play in your record, that's wonderful. It was 94 when the next record came out, after what we talked about earlier in the show about the things that happened with our, with Capitol and things like that. Was that a tough time, even though you were continuing to write and surge along? Were you again concerned?
I was very concerned because I just bought this house that I'm in now, and it was brand new.
And that is where again? I forgot to ask you, Jim. Where are you now?
It's in Monmouth County in New Jersey, in Central. But my kids were young at the time, and actually, my youngest wasn't born yet. So I was very concerned. I thought I might have to get a job or something. But then we went into the studio, recorded more, and then I actually did end up getting a day job in 2001. It was right after 9/11.
Right.
October of 2001. My neighbor across the street, who's still there, was in the Twin Towers when it was hit. On the 42nd floor, and he survived it. I didn't know he was alive for like 4 hours because it was mayhem, and it was a bad, horrible time. But so in October of that year, right after 9/11, we were doing this benefit for the victims, the families of Monmouth County. Springsteen was there, and Joan Jett, and a bunch of other people. And so Andy, my neighbor, was walking his dog, and he was at the time the senior VP of this Japanese corporate bank, and I was kind of half joking with him, and I said, I think I might have to get a job, because we don't have that many shows coming up. So he said, you know what, there's somebody that just left. I'll call you on Monday. And I said, wait a minute. I don't have any clothes. I'm like a t-shirt and jeans guy. I got to go and buy and to make up a resume of all things. Like, I don't know anything about banking, so on my resume, it said, okay, I owned a record store and I was a manager of a tavern. And, so I went in there Monday, got the job. Tuesday, I was in New York, in Rockefeller Center.
Oh my God!
The bank that was destroyed in the Twin Towers also had an office right across the street from Radio City Music Hall, which is weird because I looked out the window of the 37th floor and I see Radio City, and I'm like, damn, I played there like 5 times. Oh, what am I doing here? But I had to get a steady paycheck and provide. I have young kids. And a brand new, then I was already in this house. But so I end up staying there for 19 years. I just got let go during COVID. My job got outsourced to India because they realized that anybody, you could work from anywhere doing what I do. Wow. So I digressed there. Holy crap. So because I knew him, I started out with like 5 weeks vacation. So, okay, I could still do shows. I could still record. Most of them were on the weekends anyway. But the rough part was like playing in LA or whatever. I'd have to take the red eye. Yeah. Come into Newark at 6 a.m, change my clothes, my work clothes in the parking lot, and go to work. Right. Wow. That's just the way it was. And, wow. So, and we recorded all those songs in the 2000s. I would go into the studio at night after work and then go to work the next morning. Oh, wasn't easy, but it was doable, and you do what you can to survive. Right. Well, it's amazing you did that. You found an extra side thing to do, as this band still, though, was living on. You went through the 90s and into the 2000s. You did Meet the Smithereens in 2007, which I love the theory behind that, where you performed at Abbey Road on the River, Louisville, and people were like, damn, why don't you do something with the Beatles? That's kind of the way that came to be, that album. Well, that, and Pat read an article about the 1964 and how it changed society. not just the Beatles, and then at that time you couldn't get Meet the Beatles on CD or anything, because they in the 80s, when they came out with CDs, they kind of discontinued the American versions of the Beatles records. So that album was really special for us, because when growing up, those are the albums we knew. We didn't know the ones that you know now.
Sure.
The Please Please Me album with the Beatles. We didn't
Right.
have those back then. So
Right.
Meet the Beatles. So Pat said, we should record it. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of crazy. That's a crazy idea. But we did it. And then we ended up getting a major article in the New York Times,
Yeah.
in the weekend section, a 2 double-page center.
Arts and leisure section, which is living in Connecticut, New York Times was a Bible for us. And I bet I saw that record or that article.
So people thought we broke up, but we didn't.
No.
We've always been playing. We never stopped. But that article put us back into the public eye, and we started getting more gigs through our agent.
Yeah,
and
you did.
That kind of brought us back to life. So
that's really neat. I've got a quick clip I wanted to throw in there where I was telling you that I found. I just love this. This is from a radio show in LA, KLOS, that you did, Breakfast with the Beatles. And this song I don't think is on one of the records, either the B-side Beatles record or Meet the Smithereens. But I love the way Pat sounds. It was in 2013 that you guys did this, and it's the Beatles, so it kind of blends the Beatles with you guys. Here's a little bit of You've Got to Hide Your Love Away.
Oh.
Here I stand, head in hand, turn my face to the wall. If she's gone, I can't go on, feeling 2 foot small. Everywhere people stare, each and every day. I can see them laugh at me, and I hear them say, everybody in the room, ready? Hey! You've got to hide your love away. Hey! You've got to hide your love away. Can I even try? I can never win. Hearing them, fearing them in the state I'm in. How could she say to me, love will find a way? Gather round, all you clowns, let me hear you say, hey! You've got to hide your love away. Hey! You've got to hide your love away.
Yeah, that was about 4 years before he passed, and just amazing to see you guys sing together in the studio and sing some Beatles. I love that. You had Christmas with the Smithereens, which I loved. B-side the Beatles came out, and there were 2 things I loved about that record. One, Andy White was playing. I mean, come on, he played on the original P.S. I Love You, and there he is playing with you. That must have been fun.
We also released a sync. So what happened was, Andy White, we're in the studio, so we said, hey, let's record Love Me Do also, just to have it in the can. And he played on that. It wasn't on any album. We just released that a year or 2 ago on vinyl. It's a 45 of Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You, both with Andy White playing drums on it, recreating what he did with the Beatles. There we go.
Oh, look at that. God.
on
It's
vinyl.
it's the Smither Beatles. It really blends perfectly.
It's really cool. And wait till you
Oh.
see the label. It's if I can pull it out. Wow, it's really nice. It's on you might recognize this label.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh my God. Yeah, it does look like old school. That is intense.
Yeah, it is cool. And that's another thing that was kind of forgotten, because after Pat passed away, I was looking around at stuff and I'm like, holy cow, we have Love Me Do. We should put it out as a single, with PS I Love You.
Sure.
And then we used an old picture of ourselves where we had hair,
Right. No, I love that. The other thing I loved about that, Jim, that record too, is that the album cover was Jack Davis. And Jack Davis,
Yeah.
I was growing up not far from you and not much different as a kid. Mad Magazine was a Bible for me. The books, the magazines. And so to look at that and say, it is Jack Davis, that had to be great. I love Dennis wrote in the liner notes, Mad's influence on the Smithereens cannot be overstated. That's great.
I was just talking to Susan Cowsill from the Cowsills recently, and
Right.
that came up because Jack Davis did their cover for their greatest hits back in the 60s.
Oh, that's right. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Well, I love Mad Magazine is almost equivalent to the Smithereens. It's timeless.
Yeah,
and
we grew up on that.
totally. 2009, again, another wild release called The Smithereens Play Tommy. And, for somebody, was that your influence, being somebody who played a lot of Who back in the day?
In a roundabout way, Dennis and I,
Oh,
that's what we did in my garage back when we graduated to the garage from the basement.
right.
When I was living in high school, and we would play stuff from Live at Leeds and stuff from Tommy. That's how I learned how to play
Yeah.
chords.
Sure.
And solos. I like the simple chord leads, and so Pat, during sound check, Dennis and I would screw around sometimes to test the equipment. We'd play Pinball Wizard or See Me Feel Me or something, and then Pat, of course, said, "Oh, it's the what is it, 40th anniversary of Tommy? Let's do Tommy."
Oh,
I'm like, Pat, you're crazy. I'm not gonna. So we did it. We just did it. I played all the guitars on there. Even sang a few songs. Dennis even sang one on there or two,
great.
and so it was a cool thing to do.
Oh, I bet. I mean, and 2 years later, it's the first release of all original new material. How did that come into being, and did it feel good for you and the other guys to be back out doing an album of Smithereens music?
Well, here's the thing. There wasn't any label out there
Right.
that wanted an original album from us.
Wow.
And even the smallest labels, I won't even mention their names now.
Right.
But it's really a shame. And
Totally.
now whatever we do, we're just going to do on our own because,
Yeah.
So we were with the company that put out Tommy. We wanted to do the original album first,
Right.
and then they said, "Well, if you record Tommy, we'll let
Yes.
you do an original album."
That's right. E1 Records, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. We told them we'll record Tommy, or they said if you record Tommy, because they know it's going to sell, we'll let you do an original album. So
right.
that's how.
And not all the guys in your band were really up for doing another cover record, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it
Yes
was a
and no.
fun thing to do, but then since we hadn't put out an original album since 1999, I think,
Right.
people were like, what are they doing? They're just a cover band now. So that kind of got to me. I didn't like that.
Right.
I didn't like people saying that because we wanted
Sure.
to put out original music.
Sure.
Matter of fact, I think there's more stuff in the vaults that we can polish up, but
Right.
that'll be the later date after we, record new stuff.
Oh, that.
But yeah, so that was a great record, 2011. We're gonna put that out on vinyl also because we got the rights back to that. That was just licensed.
Oh, I can't. And the reviews to that, I read a whole bunch of them. Then there was a common sentence: "It's a return to form." I mean, you had to feel pretty good, right, about that part of it.
Yes and no, because they released that album before we can get the publicity going on it, and it was just because of their quarter year thing or whatever profit thing, and they rushed it out too fast, so we didn't get a chance to maybe go on Conan again or get some good press out of it. There was no time, so it was just kind of thrown out there, and luckily it got played on Underground Garage where
Yep.
Yeah, so again, it just got thrown out there and without any publicity.
But I would still think that and again, you have to, do you feel at this stage in your career that you do have a pretty formidable remaining fan base?
Yeah.
You should.
I mean, we're selling out the venues we're playing, and
yes, it's because
people are bringing their kids. People are bringing their kids that they say, "Oh, I grew up on your music," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I'm old."
Oh yeah, well, I bring my son, and then I could say I grew up, and I'm your age. But I just again, the music, I need to get more into 2011. I've got to get into some of the later stuff because the earlier stuff just is embedded in my soul. So I can't wait personally to jump in. The last 10, 11 years since 2011, some of the things that were major in your life and in your musical world, you played the last gig ever here at Kenny's Castaways. And that was a big deal, I bet, because you had played there when you were younger.
Oh yeah, from 1980 till we'd even go there like because Pat Kenny was a champion of ours. He loved us.
That's great.
And so before a tour, we'd go there unannounced and just do a show for whoever was there. And we did that all throughout our career. We would always stop by and play, do a unannounced show. That was always fun.
Oh, I bet. What a wonderful place. That's on Bleecker Street and in Greenwich Village for you guys who might not know where it is. Amazing thing to do, though, to have the Smithereens come in and close that place. 2013, you did a tour with Tom Petty. That had to be fun. Did you enjoy that?
Very much. It was, playing the hockey arenas and yeah, it fit like an old shoe.
Well, the response, because Petty was on a roll too, and your music still was standing the test of time, I bet, to people. So that's a great double bill, I bet. I would have loved that. I don't think I saw Tom a bunch of times. I'm sure I didn't see you guys open for him, but that had to be neat. Did you interact with him and the Heartbreakers a lot?
Not a lot, but I actually asked Tom, I said, is it really bullshit that you asked for us? Because our manager said that Tom wants us on this leg of the tour.
Right.
I thought it was just just made up, but I did ask him, and he said, "Oh yeah, I love that song you have, Sorry, it's called, from the 2011 album." And because I think he might have had a show on XM at that time. And
oh yeah, he did have that show.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, and then Mike Campbell, I always when I told him that he's, I really like his style of playing. It's more melodic. It's just, suits the song. That's how I like. Yeah.
Oh, I love that you guys did that. 2017, a tough one, is losing your buddy for so many years, Pat DiNizio, at 62 years old. Well, I turned 62 next Saturday. When I saw that, I was like, wow. That had to hit hard. That had to, even though the band might not be writing or doing a lot of records, and it wasn't back like something happened in the 80s or 90s, but it had to hit you extremely hard.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta keep moving forward, because if you don't, you'll just end up sitting on the couch eating cheese doodles watching HBO.
Right.
You
Or
got to get
HBO,
out there. And
HBO Max.
keep doing. You got to keep doing what you love, and,
Right.
and it's obvious that people still want to see us, and they want to see the guys that played on the records and
Sure.
wrote some of the songs, and
Yeah.
you know, it was a collective effort. I know Pat wrote most of the lyrics and most of the stuff, but we all had a big piece of it.
Yes, you all did contribute hugely. Here's a clip I just loved. It got to me right here. It was in January of 2017, so he was about a year before he passed, and it's at this BB King in New York that you guys played at, and I just love seeing him sing. He's still, you know, did you feel that he was able to? How long did he sing up until he passed away?
I think it was a month or two. The last show we did with him, he was sitting in a chair.
That's right. I remember hearing that.
And it just didn't look good. And we decided, you know, it's not good for people to see him like that. He couldn't use his hands anymore. I mean, this was a while coming. It's not like I wasn't really prepared for this, because I had known he was sick for about 5 years.
Oh, I bet.
You know, we had talked about it.
I bet you did.
But, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very understanding opinion. I just saw Genesis this past year, and Phil Collins was in some really rough shape to witness on stage. Luckily, they sounded good, but it is a tough choice for people to do. But here is a moment when Pat was still singing and these guys were still playing with him, and I love the way you sound, and I love this song, so I wanted to play this version. Here we go with Only a Memory.
Hey, Jimmy's gonna start this one off. Sing along if you know it.
Another Smithereens classic to me, Jim, that you're part of. And I'm telling you, I can't wait till after the show to go play some on the way to the market and play some more and listen to you guys all the time. You were honored into the New Jersey Hall of Fame in 2019, which is, I mean, come on, the people that are in there, from the creative arts to the, you know, all over the map. It must have been a neat thing for you Jerseyites to get in there, was it?
It's amazing. Frank Sinatra's in there.
Right.
You know, Albert Einstein.
Right.
because he's with at Princeton University here.
Right. That Springsteen guy, I think, is probably in there. You got a bunch of other people, John Bond. Yeah, just an amazing group. And it seems like that had to be neat, though. Again, a Jerseyites to be in there.
George Alexander.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, George. Sorry, not George.
Jason Alexander, or no?
It's George Costanza.
Right. That's right. You combine their names. That's perfect.
That's fun.
That is. And you were inducted into the White Castle Cravers Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I mean, wow. What was that all about?
I wrote a song with a high school friend of mine, Bob Banta.
White Castle Blues, right?
Castle Blues, which Marshall Crenshaw plays 6-string baritone guitar on the original version, because he was in the studio with us when we were recording it.
Yes.
And that was a fluke, because I wrote that a long time ago. We didn't intend on recording it. We used to play it live,
right?
And we had some time left, and Don Dixon said, "Hey, we got some time. You want to record that hamburger song of yours?" And Dennis said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we did that in one take. We didn't expect anything to happen with that, but it ended up on the CD of the first album. And White Castle took note of it, the company, and they're a great company. Family run business. It's not really a franchise that you can buy. It's family run.
Right.
And yeah, it's an honor. And they're a great company. They have made donations to Pat's music fund and my late wife's college fund also.
Right.
So they're great supporters of ours. And we're actually on the new boxes right now that they have for the hamburgers. It says "Long live the Smithereens," and has the story on there on the box.
I love that. I think the last White Castle I went to was in New Jersey, and I'm trying to remember where and why it was, but it definitely was in New Jersey some point. Well, that's great. Those are some neat things. When did Robin and Marshall join, and what was the thought? I know you'd known them for a long time. You'd known Marshall for a long time, and Robin?
I had just met Robin for this gig that we were scheduled to play in January. Pat died in December.
Yes.
And it was at the Count Basie Theater.
Wow.
And it was, tickets were already being sold. And we had the idea to make it into start a music fund, scholarship fund with Pat DiNizio's name.
Right.
And we decided at the time to just call all our friends, the singers mainly, that could each sing a song or two. And we invited Peter Zaremba from the Fleshtones, an old friend of ours, B.B. Buell, who is Liv Tyler's mom, and
yeah,
she did a version of Top of the Pops back in the 90s, so we knew that she could sing that one. And who else? Ted Leo, and wow, just a whole slew of people. And at the end of that, we did like a 3.5-hour concert, and it was just wonderful. The audience was wonderful. It was a great feeling, and you could feel the love in the air for Pat and for the band. And after the show, both Marshall and Robin both said, this was so much fun. If you want to do this again, let me know. And that evolved into doing more shows. And so the Gin Blossoms are very active. It's hard to get Robin to do a show with us, but he's actually playing with us next week or 2 weeks from now in San Juan Capistrano.
Wow.
And on an 80s cruise we're doing out of LA to Mexico.
Great. Wow.
That's actually what I'm packing for today.
Oh, great.
I've never been on a cruise, and I used to joke like you'd have to pay me to go on a cruise. And now, how ironic is it?
Oh, wow. So that's before the Birchmere show, right? On the 17th? So or is it
Before,
after? Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Oh,
Yes,
so
I'll
you'll
come
you'll
back.
come into our show and I see you all tan and on the ship. And
Doubt it.
I'll seasick. No.
I wear a lot of sunblock. So, yeah, I love the ocean and everything, but
Right.
Yeah, that's how that happened. And Marshall does his own shows.
Yeah.
And then people often ask, why don't you do any Jim Blossom songs or Marshall Crenshaw songs? And it's like, you know what? We have like, I don't know what, so many albums out and so many songs. Plus, it wouldn't be fair to them because then people might say, oh, well, I already saw, Robin do, play Jim Blossom songs with the Smithereens or Marshall.
Right.
People yell out someday, some way or whatever. No, you go to see them to hear that. They consider themselves part of our band, the Smithereens, when they're with us, and it's quite an honor. And that's the right way to do it, I think. That's the right way to do it for us. Anyway.
Oh, it's completely the right way. And I'm as a music nut. If I go see Marshall is playing with you when I'm going to go see you on St. Patrick's Day. I've interviewed him before, and we had a wonderful chat years ago. And but I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I love his music, and I'm a big Jim Blossoms fan, but I want to hear the Smithereens when I go see you. So that makes complete sense. Once again, what I loved is this Lost album, and I think that's something I'm going to fall into big time, Jim. I love this. The critiques seem wonderful. There was one that said, the guy from the Andy Gray said, it is a great addition to the band's catalog. It just seems like it was a great move at this point in all your guys' career to get some of that great music that had been sitting back there for 20 or 30 or 40 years to throw it in there.
Yeah, I mean, at the time in '94 when we got signed to RCA, we didn't think a double album would be a good idea.
Right.
So there you go. And then this half was left to now.
Right. No, I love that. But look, I will see you in a couple of weeks after your cruise on St. Paddy's Day. I hope I maybe get a chance to come back and say hello if you want to do that. I go live. I go live from the Birchmere before they let me in before anybody gets let in. I've been writing stuff for their artists for years and knew Gary very well and know Michael Jaworek and all these guys. And so I go in live and do a live hit. And I was even going to try to talk you into doing a 5-minute part of it for me, but maybe we'll talk about that at some other time. But look, I can't wait to see you guys play, to hear that music again. I'm going to have tears in my eyes. That's just the way I am, thanks to my emotional parents from years ago. But to hear your music again, just even recorded, let alone live, it's a blessing. I got to tell you.
Well, thank you so much. That's wonderful.
It's been so wonderful to talk to you and to spend the last 2 or 3 weeks just immersing myself back in this music. And I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. But good luck with everything. The Lost album, you guys, Sunset Boulevard Records, but it is another piece of the Smithereens legacy. And so go find it. And also all the other stuff they've ever done is worth grabbing. But Jim, I will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot for being on Living on Music, man. I really appreciate it.
Looking forward to it. And thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thanks. Woo. Again, as I said at the open of the show and to him a few times, to be able to talk to somebody whose music I've loved for, almost 40 plus years. And, to really bond on this way. And we've been keeping in touch there. He's on a cruise now that he was talking about from California down to Mexico on an 80s cruise with a bunch of other bands, Devo and The Church and a whole bunch of other bands. And to be able to message with him, he's one of the Smithereens, this band that I listen to, but they're regular people. All these musicians, they really are normal human beings who have exceptional times and talents and moments in music. And that's what Jim Babjak did. What an amazing, amazing journey with him. Thanks so much, Jim Babjak. What I'd like you to do regarding new records, things that are going to come out, there's still stuff in their vaults that they're going to release over the coming years, I'm sure. Jim Babjak, just keep in close touch. Anybody who would like to be a contributor to Living on Music, again, the show has been pro bono and engaging and involving musicians through the pandemic, and now as we slowly get out here and there, it's still popping up, but we're trying to open up and begin to turn a little bit of a corner and just get some revenue to be able to continue the show, to pay Todd Jones, my editor, compensate him properly to be able to do buying of different items and things and online programs and software. Anyway, go to Venmo, and it is at Living on Music LLC. And that's where you can contribute to Living on Music, and you will be recognized. You will be duly noted, and hopefully it will become an annual contribution as the show goes on for how long it can. But would love to have you be part of the legacy of Living on Music. So it's Venmo, and then it's at Living on Music LLC. If you want to become a member and you're not yet for Living on Music, if you are, you know it's fun, go to Facebook, Living on Music with Steve Houck on Facebook right here, and become a member. Also, you can go to YouTube channel, subscribe. We don't overdo our posts, so you don't get pinged all the time. It's episodes and excerpts, and those are, you know, spaced out a little bit. So join YouTube, Living on Music on YouTube. Really would love to have more subscribers, and it's growing as we go along. And also, if you're a podcaster and love podcasts, then please go to the Spreaker is the base. That's the URL you see here, and then you can go find your own best podcast apps and go to Living on Music with Steve Houck on your podcast app, and boom, that you can find all the most recent episodes, the last 30, I think, that have been done, excerpts. There's excerpts with Rick Wakeman and Carmine Appice and Jake Shimabukuro, and amazing excerpts, as well as full shows, because when we do the video, we also do the podcast. So that's what we'd love to have. Again, want to thank everybody for the last 3 years of this amazing experience that I've taken. And I hope people, again, I know they have enjoyed the experience on Living on Music. And it's been wonderful giving them a chance to engage and reminisce and promote and talk and just have a wonderful experience. And we're not stopping anytime soon. So contribute if you can. And don't forget, if you're up, down, sideways, if you're just anything you're feeling, the one thing that can help you all the time is to be living on music.